All right, good evening. Today is Friday, August 16th, 2024. Our goal is to review today's market generated information in a holistic fashion. We are intimately following the auction's narrative of both ES and NQ for now. If we have time, we'll theorize and add additional commentary towards the end. We did speculate and provide preparation this morning. You can find the video on our channel. Feel free to check it out. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So we will start with our questions. Where was the market coming from? And what did the market try to accomplish? What was the objective for today? So as always, I like to start with the monthly candles. Of course, we'll get a sneak peek and see, where we're actually green for the month now. So again, this is the weekly candle. You can see how we finish. All right, and we'll go ahead and look at the daily candle. So we've been doing our homework every day, so you can 100% see the narrative as it's unfolded with our commentary. So we had the yesterday's, which was Thursday, which is where the arrow is. Going over from last week, we had our bull flag. Kind of go through this again, which is totally fine. We had our Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We closed at the high with a nice little bull flag. We had our Monday session, which is a consolidation. We had our Tuesday session, which was consolidation and then the impulse. Wednesday was another consolidation, building volume higher. Thursday was another nice impulse through these ranges for the end of June and the start of August. So very powerful indeed. So where we're coming from a nice continuation to a bull flag, definitely stopping out, short covering a rally, and just some new money buying just for sure. I'm not sure if it's throughout the whole bars, but we won't get into the specifics as of now. But we're coming from this pattern of consolidation, impulse. So what will be next in that sequence? We would assume an impulse. So the goal would have been to build volume higher. Same situation for the NQ. We got our monthly, we got our weekly, we got our daily. Flag, consolidate, impulse, coil, impulse, you guessed it, coil. So, how good of a job did the market do today accomplishing its goal? Was there any kind of surprises? Anything noteworthy? We'll get into specifics of the metrics looking at the volume shortly because it was a fairly light day overall. Regarding the price action, it was a little surprising to see some of the overnight trading, but very nice response bouncing off the prior IB high. But again, we'll look at that a little more detail. But other than that, very, very simple day. We did start off with a potential for a gap down, and just seeing the way everyone responded, immediately started buying at the open. It was pretty interesting to see. So, not necessarily a surprise, but good information overall, just in general. Gap down here for the NQ as well. Again, we'll look at the specifics shortly. All right, so we've already looked at the monthly, we look at the weekly, we look at the daily, and we can understand that this is a massive continuation from the bull flag off that down spike. This is the weekly candles. We're threatening these highs up here, which will be from July. Yeah, the last 2 weeks of July. So very nice overall. Okay. So we expected that today was going to be a balanced day, given the lighter volume overnight and the downside pressure that seemed to stop at the prior IB high. So as we're heading into the RTH, we were not extremely red. It was kind of um, kind of wishy-washy on both sides. We had some sectors that were pretty weak and some that were holding fairly well. So, it was just kind of vague. Couldn't really tell too much in the morning. So the sentiment was fairly decent. All right. So we understand where we were on the daily. Let's go ahead and take at the daily footprint. And we can see this light day that we had. Nothing really serious until towards the end of the day. The majority of the volume was taken at that top quarter, which is where we'll see our VPOC. No real big sell, no real big imbalances on either side throughout at least the daily candle. That is, volume is extremely light. We'll just consider the delta being neutral at this time, given the light volume, and you wouldn't even say it's excess buyers. It's just light volume altogether. So it's insignificant at this point. So the range was 50 points on the ES, and it was like, what, like 250, 236 on the NQ. So very decent range on very light volume. All right, so let's look at the daily for the market profile. So we have our TPOs and our volume profile. You can see, and to the left, we have the weekly profile. As you can see here, just really drifting up. Impulse, consolidate. Impulse, consolidate. Impulse, you guessed it, consolidate. I do think it's very noteworthy to see that we tried to balance before, and we got above the weekly high, the prior day's high, which wasn't too hard because we're already above it, to basically start. But we tried to have one more leg here and failed, and immediately went down to our next reference point, which is the composite VPOC. Squish that down. You can see this is the most traded volume since the middle of April, which is above the contract premium zone. So following the narrative, we are back at the correct prices, the most accepted prices. We tried to test lower to see is any of this still valid as of this week, these lower prices. And we had singles right below this VPOC and absolutely killer response from the buyers. You can see that we went down, we tested, and clearly shot back up and had the most volume traded at the highs. We started at the highs, tested the lows, accepted the highs. Again, light volume, so you will take some of this with a grain of salt, but this is a bull market overall, and it's been a bull market for a while. So it's really not, it's pretty much as expected. So really not too much to glean here. Just a little V shape here. This is the little Batman symbol I was talking about. I wouldn't be surprised if we have another consolidation day next week, but we'll look at next week shortly. So we're going to go ahead and merge these, and we'll have the weekly composite there, and we can match that against the other composite that we have for past couple of contracts. So that's the S&P 500. Before we do the NQ, let's go ahead and jump and look at the sectors and see how the S&P actually formed that. You can see that we close almost break even, up 20 basis points, with the leaders being financials, which is awesome to see. Again, we made a comment the other day. Financials ended up holding pretty well on that CPI day. I believe that they were the leader. I could be wrong. So seeing them in a undecided time, literally undecided because we're just consolidating sideways. It's nice to see the student that kind of stood out that Wednesday. It's nice to see. Second, we got the utilities who's continuing on their breakout, I would imagine. I haven't actually looked at their chart. I've just been kind of following them, a bit superficially. We have the communications again. This was a big battle between Meta and Google on who was going to be the worst or who was going to save us. See, Meta is down almost 2%. You got Google is up. So it was interesting to see these two, Google and Meta, this morning when we're looking at the quote board. Everyone else just kind of fell in line. 25 basis, 27. We got the 10 for the healthcare and 12 for materials, 17 for technology. I know Microsoft was struggling a little bit. Yeah. So 60 basis points, a buck 40, and about 60 for Apple. Broadcom's about negative 25. Again, nothing too noteworthy there. And then just checking out the healthcare. Eli Lilly is doing what they're doing, and everyone else is just kind of just sitting sideways for the most part. So very nice showing over there. Again, if we're seeing some breadth, we don't have to have tech leading. We can get some help from communications, from financials. Healthcare did its job for the majority of this week. And actually, let's take a quick look at this 5 day. We can see this as well. Tech needed to break. Healthcare came from the lows and ended up piling back up, um, just to kind of hold pretty toughly this weekend. Financials did really well with the CPI, have been doing a continuation since. I think consumer discretionary, I think the majority of this was yesterday, if I recall. So just nice showing across the board, very nice overall. The laggard being real estate. So for the actual data, again, we had the consumer sentiment, the preliminaries at 7 o'clock, and before then at the 5:30, the housing starts and the building permits. I'll take a quick look at next week. We're not going to spend too much time on it, but we have the leading economic indicators at 7 o'clock on a Monday. We got some speakers that same Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday, we do have our minutes, but these aren't going to be a super big market moving thing unless there's some verbiage in there that's attention worthy, I guess, especially compared to the Jackson Hole retreat that we have on Friday at 7 in the morning. On top of the home sales. And then we can't forget on Thursday, we have more of the initial jobless claims. And then we have our services and the manufacturing's PMI, which follows the existing home sales. So again, it's going to be an interesting week next week. And then just a quick look at the earnings. We do have a lot of, I would imagine this is either like discretionary or the consumer staples, but definitely the staples as far as the retail side of things. Interesting to see how that goes. Okay, cool. So we have a good understanding of how S&P 500 formed their day and what we're looking at next week. Let's go ahead and pull it back. We'll look at NQ. NQ is going to be pretty much the same situation. I don't really care too much about looking at their structure. I feel that ES trades a bit more cleaner. No real reference points on where we stopped here. This was just like a bit of a low volume area from the prior days volume profile, and even with the weekly, it's not really too much going here. Even if you go all the way over to here, this is more just like a low volume node just as a whole, pretty much this area in here. So I mean, you can really just say that you can build a lot of volume in this zone, in this lower this valley here, but it's just taking up a lot of space. I don't want to add that. So again, it's really not too much references here. So just kind of be mindful of where we're navigating with the Nasdaq. Same situation though. We have our Batman looking shape here. Actually, I think this actually may be an inverted head and shoulders. I could be incorrect. Volume was not accepted directly at the highs, just a little bit lower, maybe that top third. No singles in here or anything like that. Real controlled day, basically a high normal day. Wouldn't call that a P by any means. And yeah, that was an NQ. All right, let's head to the RTH sessions. All right, so pulling up this other chart book here. So if we look at this 138-minute candle, again, it's 2 hours and 18 minutes. So earlier in the session, so I mean, this is at this is around the time for RTH. Basically ended up being here at the lows. This was looking pretty bearish. So, you had to kind of take this with a grain of salt because we are on this massive uptrend. So it looked a little scarier in real time for those who may have been maybe not oriented to where we've been. Notice the higher high for ES and the higher low. I mean the lower high for NQ as of now. Take a quick look at the footprint. Again, we won't spend much time on this because this was extremely low volume. So again, the 65-minute candles here, you can see we pushed here at these lows, ended up battling through these sellers. Buyers broke through. We had sellers up in here, some pretty nice volume, at least on this first hour, somewhat typical. Sellers had some pretty good positioning. We ended up pushing this a bit lower. We had some effort. They tried to keep it down, but we ended up having some pressure here. Ooh, my apologies. We ended up having some pressure. I can't really change it properly, so it's not gonna work like I thought. No worries. Let me see if I can do it from here. Yeah, it's just not gonna work. It's fine. But yeah, we ended up having some pressure here for the ill-positioned sellers. So you would imagine we have some kind of a stop run here. I'm assuming that's what this bluer section was. I was looking at some of this in real time, but I ended up stepping away like around 9 o'clock. Ended up trying to have some sellers here. They tried to swarm, but again, we just pretty much just sat sideways. Not really too much conviction from the buyers on this calm Friday on low volume. No real catalyst when we have uh, Powell speaking next week. Around the same situation here, looking at the NQ, just a little more elongated, of course. Same situation, ill positioned sellers the whole time. They ended up being caught up and not being able to really get some good position in, so they had to be forced to liquidate. They tried again. They're able to get some little progress here. Very wishy-washy day. Not really too much to speak about. All right, let's go to the NQ looking at theirs. So again, notice, again, these are 3-minute candles. So again, you can notice that we have our opening of the overnight session about in this area here. We ended up drifting up some, ended up selling off a little bit, but we're still trading in this prior day's range. Trying to shoot up a little bit more, having some more progress, finally getting up, and then around midnight or so, we ended up selling off, pushing all the way down. Not looking too good there. So in anticipation, one moment, can I do? I just removed the drawing for the SOC, which is fine, which is down here. Perfect. So yeah, we ended up just selling all the way off basically for several hours. Not really too much information from what I saw. Of course, I'm not looking at the macro news or anything. We had our SOC. We ended up kind of shooting below it. Ended up drifting up into the RT8 session where we see our first candle in the RT8 session. It's just absolutely ugly. Like, what is this? Just up and then this just no upside pressure at all, just all downside. But a very nice bear trap for the most part. That was going to be the low of the RTH session there. So we basically just end up having an open auction, and then at 7 o'clock, with the consumer sentiment end up engulfing that whole section here, pretty much just drifting up for the B bracket. Very nice, but do remember that we're still inside of the overnight sessions range, so it's really not too much going on here. That's really not too much progress. So you'd imagine we're going to see more of the two-way trading, because again, this is like lower volume, but we are still above the prior day's range. So again, it's very important for you to stay oriented. And as we came back down from those highs for that B bracket, C bracket, we ended up pushing down to back into the IB high. We ended up pushing through the 5 smoothing average, the VWAP, and then ended up settling somewhere between the IB high, IB mid, and this open price. Notice we did test the open and the mid here, got rejected, and we went right back above that 530 zone. And then we had some more. Activity, um, testing a little lower again, but we just could not trade below that open. Okay, cool. So that warrants like a possible leg up. We ended up closing above this 5 smoothing average and did the VWAP. We ended up crawling our way and impulsing through the IB high and really just eating up this whole range that we had here in this B bracket. So again, just very nice overall. We started riding this 5 smoothing average, nice little trend up, but again, we did not break the overnight highs overall. So still fairly bullish overall, but just non-committal on both sides. All right, we'll go ahead and leave it there. I did not trade the NQ today, but I did trade the MES. Same situation here, everything we just went through, so feel free to go back and listen to our commentary. Again, we have our trading sideways, and then we had our drift lower. We had our 530 data. We um, ended up crashing into the prior IB high, and very nice response from the buyers in this situation here. We ended up drifting up, same style as we did with the NQ. The only difference here is that it wasn't as much as a long wick here, and seemed more of a open test drive from the ES. As we ended up pushing up a bit more, very nice close. This is not an open auction. If you say this is an open auction, sure. Open auction with the upward screw. If not a potential open drive, notice that all this action traded above the 5 smoothing average and the RTH VWAP. So very nice. As we get into the 7 a.m. data, we had that same engulfing candle. We trade sideways, and then this would be more of the open auction behavior because we closed still inside of the range of this 7 a.m. candle. So very nice for the buyers for the A and B bracket. As we find our way down, we go through the IB high, we go through the full session VWAP, the 5 smoothing average, and the VWAP, but we cannot stay under the 7 a.m. zone. The reason I didn't do the zone for the NQ is because it was still the half of its body was still inside of this other 530 zone. So I didn't want to just make a big zone like this because now we're just drawing stuff. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to keep it nice and tight. So if it's that unclear, then I shouldn't trade that product. So again, as we are coming down from these highs, we peak above the high of the SOC, immediately get rejected and go all the way down. Where do we find support or potential support? At the IB high, but we never tested the open. And notice we did not touch the high of the 530 candle. So this was very important to me. Not only this, closing back above this IB mid, and we did not trade below the IB mid for the rest of the session. So this is where I started getting a little bit interested because I saw that we were holding this support area here. Okay, so cool. We're starting to see the same nice response for the NQ. So as we're kind of turning our way up here and we're closing above these VWAP bands in this little session here, I got long, I think like somewhere like right here at this IB high. See if we can have some kind of squeeze compression up. And we ended up taking profit pretty much at the pretty much right here. The target was the HOD, but we had a nice close above it, and we just kind of got out like right here. And we pretty much just went sideways for the rest of the day. It really wasn't too much, but it's nice that all of our volume for the rest of the day, once we broke the high, stayed above the high. We ticked below it and couldn't stay below. So again, very nice show from the buyers overall. Sweet end to the week. Really not too much else to add there, but we went over everything in depth. I did have a couple of notes that I wanted to add. We made some updates to our chart drawings. So we added some zones here. Feel free to look at those, pause them, and look at them and see what you think. We ended up adding a midline here since these are a little longer, but these will be some of the action that we've had from the past 2 weeks. I thought it'd be a good idea to update these in preparation of next week. Can look at the NQs. The ones at the top were already there. The newer ones, the one in the middle is the same. This is actually the same as there as well. Yeah, I only drew this one down here. This would be like the line in the sand for August for the most part. I had a few updates on here as well, mainly just kind of cleaned up. Really nothing too special here. So yeah, we'll go ahead and close that out there. The last notes I wanted to make was, again, this was a very nice pullback to the SOC high for the 530 for the ES. We talked about that. Very low volume. Reading the DOM when the volume is this low, it's incredibly interesting. It's a bit sluggish. You do need to be a bit patient, but given the context and the narrative, you just have to kind of take your shot and just believe in more of the concept of your trade and the structure of it, and less on the emotional and the reactions from the other players. You need to have a solid plan, and just kind of take your shot. Just manage your risk. Just keep it tight. And we have the oh yes, the daily closes above the 5S for the ES. Once we kind of settled right at it, we got one, two, three, four, two impulses, two consolidation ranges, which is nice. But look at the NQ, who we've been watching for a little longer. Once they had this nice little impulse and we closed nicely above, we had one, two, three, four, five, six. You can count to seven if you want to when we first reached over. So very nice. We have a whole week of days, week and a half of days above the five simple moving average for the daily. So again, we'll go ahead and stop there. We're not gonna add anything else for next week. Looking forward to it. Let's rest up and review.